Great, Catherine, shall we make a start in the interest of time? And as people join, we will they can catch up.
Yeah, sounds good. So shall I kick off?
Thank you.
So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We're so excited how many people have expressed an interest in this funding opportunity, and we're really excited to share details of it. So this webinar is about our funding opportunity for research and partnership hubs for a healthy society. So we're going to go through a bit of background and context to the funding opportunity and provide some more details on the funding opportunity and the assessment criteria and those kind of details. Then we have a couple of speakers that have joined us. So somebody that was awarded funding for a hub in the last round of research and partnership hubs. And then we'll also have a speaker who will give us a bit more detail about patient public involvement and engagement and how that can be incorporated into a hub bid and some kind of hints and tips around that. And then finally, there'll be time for some questions afterwards. If there are any questions, please pop them in the Q&A function of the webinar, and we can get round to those. There is an upvote button as well, so you can kind of click on that, and we'll try and go through the ones which are most popular first as we go through them. And then any we don't get round to, we can go and answer those as part of our FAQ document afterwards. So don't worry if we don't get around to your questions. So by way of quick introduction, hi everyone, I'm Catherine Freeman, the Head of Healthcare Technologies at EPSRC, and I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues, so Laura Katzman, who's a Senior Portfolio Manager in the team and is the Funding Opportunity Lead for this particular opportunity. We're also joined by Andrew Eustace, who's also Senior Portfolio Manager in the Healthcare Technologies team, and he'll be helping us with the questions later as well and navigating those. We're joined by Professor Stephen Runnard and Dr. Karen Rafferty at the University of Liverpool, and they'll be sharing their perspectives on the hub management of their hub that they are leading up at Liverpool. Then we have Dr. Lauren Walker, who's at the University of Bristol and works on some of large EPSRC investments, and will share her perspective on patient public involvement and engagement. And next slide, please. So we thought we'd share a bit of detail about where this funding opportunity has come about and why we've published it. So the funding opportunity aims to deliver against the EPSRC Healthcare Technology Strategy, which you can see here on the diagram on the left. And the summaries are shown here, and you can find more details on our website via the link as well if you want more information on that. So the vision for our strategy is to stimulate advances in transformative engineering and physical sciences research, which will have a significant impact in health and enable people to live healthier lives. So that's our kind of overall vision. Surrounding our strategy, we have sort of 3 challenge areas, which are listed on the slide here. So improving population health and prevention, transforming early prediction and diagnosis, and discovering and accelerating the development of new interventions. And this particular funding opportunity is focusing on the population health and prevention of ill health and transforming early diagnosis challenges. If you see on the left-hand side of this slide, there's a wheel diagram which shows our vision and our chat surrounded by our challenges. And you'll also see we have some enablers. So these 6 enablers are things that we think will support delivery of high quality, impactful healthcare technologies research. And of particular relevance to this funding opportunity is the patient and public involvement and engagement enabler, which is listed here, and a lot of the others will also be important to delivering healthcare technologies research. Next slide, please, Laura. So we thought we'd provide some details about the research and partnership hubs that we funded in 2024. So we funded 5 hubs, which are listed here, and there's more details in that link as well. And you'll be hearing a bit later from the National Hub for Advanced Long-Acting Therapeutics. So I won't go through all of those, but what we're looking to do in this funding opportunity is fill strategic gaps that we haven't funded from the first round of hubs. So we're looking specifically to fund hubs which are more in the prevention, early diagnosis challenge of our strategy. So next slide, please, Laura, and I'll hand over to Laura now to provide a bit more detail on the funding opportunity and what's required of you as part of this process. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Catherine. So the principal aim for this funding opportunity is to deliver a number of large-scale multidisciplinary research hubs which draw on expertise from across the engineering and physical sciences and health research communities. The hubs should look to build and develop strategic research capabilities which deliver against the EPSRC healthcare technology strategy that Catherine gave a little bit of a brief overview to, and help fulfil our vision of ultimately enabling people to live healthier lives. And as Catherine said, as this is the second round of research and partnership hubs that we're funding, we're looking to complement and refresh our existing portfolio of hubs. So hubs that are funded through this funding opportunity should be critical mass investments which build on current strengths and work in partnerships across the wider healthcare technologies research and innovation landscape. They're expected to deliver a programme of world-leading research, which is of high quality and multidisciplinary in nature and addresses one or more of the three challenges which are outlined in this funding opportunity. And I'll go through the three challenges in turn in the coming slides in a little bit more detail. They should provide evidence of how the hub will create a critical mass of research capacity in their particular area and drive forward the national research agenda and actively build a wider research and innovation ecosystem. They should be working in partnership with a diverse range of relevant partners, and that can include academic partners, industry, policy, regulation, healthcare professionals and users, as is relevant to the particular hub application. They should be doing patient and public involvement and engagement, and we will go through the PPIE parts of this funding opportunity in a little bit more detail as well, but the PPIE should be embedded throughout the hub aims and objectives and operations, and it should be considered in the context of the hub specific research area. So we're not expecting a one size fits all in PPIE, it should be tailored to your hub area and research activities. Translation, the hubs should be ensuring a clear route to translation for their research outcomes by developing a translation and impact action plan, which considers the specific translation context and challenges for the hub. And that translation and impact plan will be required at the full proposal stage, so not the outline stage of the funding opportunity. Hubs should act as UK leaders in their field on behalf of the wider research landscape and engage with the wider research community, and they should provide supportive and inclusive environments with a strong ethos of skills development for all of their hub members. So I'll go through now the specific challenge areas that this funding opportunity is looking to address. So hubs should have a core mission and research objectives in one or more of these three challenge areas that are outlined in the funding opportunity document. These are prevention, population health, supporting people to manage their own health, and novel techniques for early diagnosis. And you should have a majority focus, as I said, in one or more of these areas, and you must state clearly which priority or challenge area you are primarily addressing at both your outline and full application stage if you are successful at outline stage. And I'll go through the detail of the challenges now for you. So the first one is prevention and population health. This priority is looking to focus on the need for novel techniques that optimise health and prevent and ultimately help eliminate disease. So research within this challenge should be co-created with stakeholders, including policymakers, to ensure that there is real-world impact. And prevention includes promoting health in a population to address the determinants of health in the physical environment, as well as tackling causes of disease and ultimately enabling people to have a better quality of life. The prevention and population health area is quite broad, and so to be within remit for this funding opportunity, please note that you must demonstrate how your research area has the potential to directly reduce or prevent physical or mental ill health. The second challenge area is supporting people to manage their own health, and this priority focuses on a shift in services out of hospitals and into the community at home. It includes, but is not limited to, novel tools for technology-enabled learning, which could support people to make health decisions, person-centered technologies to enable people to better manage their own health at home, or minimally intrusive monitoring technologies for tackling health and making it easier for patients to interact with their healthcare professionals and or carers and provide updates on their medical conditions. This is not an exhaustive list, so there's many other areas that might come into this challenge area, but hubs which address this challenge priority should demonstrate how their novel research will enable a self-management of health. And just to be aware that it does not include novel therapies or treatment as the main focus of the research development for the hub. The third and final challenge area is novel techniques for early diagnosis, and this is looking at development of techniques which optimise patient-specific illness prediction and or early and accurate diagnosis. Technologies should work at a person-specific level and provide early warnings for patients and their carers or healthcare professionals. And it can include scientific, mathematical and other techniques, including biomarker identification, research into medical imaging, risk stratification, predictive modelling, and real-time evidence-based decision-making, as well as, I'm sure, many other areas that address novel techniques for early diagnosis. So research which is a majority outside of these three challenge areas will not be in remit for this funding opportunity. And if you have any project-specific questions about remit, we'd encourage you to get in touch with us via email. Sorry, and we're very happy to set up conversations to discuss any remit queries on a project-specific basis. So just to cover a little bit more around the public and patient involvement and engagement aspects of the funding opportunity, PPIE is one of our key enablers in our health technology strategy, and we expect all hubs to integrate PPIE at all stages of their research and innovation process. It's an important way that the full cycle of the research and innovation can be co-created and delivered with public, and our aim is for equitable and inclusive public involvement to be an integral part of the research process. So for us, PPIE is an effective two-way engagement process with patients, people with lived experience, including users of technology such as carers or clinical and healthcare professionals. It's important as PPIE improves research by ensuring it's more relevant to people's lives and experiences. It can increase the acceptability of the technology and therefore the likelihood of adoption of your research outputs. And PPIE should be embedded across all stages of your research programme and involve a different range of stakeholders depending on the needs and what is appropriate for your hub and your research agenda. Your PPIE plan, which is required at outline stage, should look in detail at how you will co-create and co-deliver PPIE through the lifespan of your hub and who you will be engaging with. And we're looking for clear evidence of genuine and substantiative partnerships in that plan. And I'll cover more on the specific assessment criteria for PPIE when we get to the assessment criteria part of the webinar. So what is a hub? For the purpose of this funding opportunity, we've outlined what we expect a hub to include. So it should be a nucleus of research which is delivered through multiple institutions based around a lead institution. It can be physical or virtual. You will need to have a hub director and then a wider leadership team from across relevant disciplines and sectors for your hub area. You'll need a management team, which includes a hub manager and any appropriate administrative team as required. You'll also have to have a named lead for PPIE and partnership working and a named lead for translation and impact, and then appropriate research staff distributed across the project, and also appropriate advisory and governance structures, including an independent advisory board. It's expected that the management of the hubs will require more investigator time than that of our standard grants, and so you will need to factor that in to your application, and you should also consider the onward sustainability of your hub beyond the lifespan of the EPSRC funding for this opportunity. So a little bit more detail on what we will and will not fund as part of the opportunity. The proposals must lie I've got a frog in my throat. The proposals must lie primarily within the remit of EPSRC and be within scope of this funding opportunity. So that is addressing the aims and objectives that we've laid out and one or more of the 3 challenge areas that we've also gone through. Hubs are expected to outline how their proposal fits to those challenge areas in this opportunity and meets the opportunity objectives. And this funding opportunity looks to fill strategic gaps in our research landscape and not duplicate substantial investments already made. And for that reason, we're also asking hubs to include details of how they are positioned within the current research landscape and do not duplicate and complement EPSRC, UKRI or other funded areas which overlap their challenge or research area. And I'll go through specifically what you need to do in the assessment criteria part of this webinar. Funding that you can apply for. So we do not fund clinical trials. So that is studies which involve large numbers of animals or patients, but costs can be requested for proof of concept studies. And I have provided links in a slide at the end of here around our guidance on what constitutes a proof of concept study, if you want to look that up after the webinar. You can apply for equipment costs between £10,000 and £400,000 in value, and those figures are inclusive of VAT. And you cannot request funding at this funding opportunity for support for PhD studentships or any related funding to support PhD studentships provided through other routes. So funding that is available, the total funding for this funding opportunity will be between £37.5 million and £62.5 million at full economic costing, and the exact figure is subject to the outcome of the spending review allocations, which are currently ongoing. Therefore, we're expecting to fund between 3 and 5 hubs, depending on our total available budget and the outcomes of the assessment process. The full economic cost of each individual hub application can be up to £12.5 million, and EPSRC will fund 80% of that full economic costing, so that is £10 million per application. Due to the scale of the awards, we're expecting significant collaboration and leverage, either cash or in kind, from project partners. However, project partner details are not required at the outline stage, so you will need your project partner details should you be successful at outline stage and be invited to submit a full proposal application. So not at outline. So an overview of the timeline then. The funding opportunity opened on the 15th of July. So it's now currently open. It closes on the 21st of October this year at 4 p.m. and that is the time and date that EPSRC must receive your application through the funding service. So please be wary of any internal deadlines your institution might have. The assessment for outline is that all of the outlines will be going to outline panel, and that panel will be held at some point in December, and when a date is finalised we will update the funding opportunity details to let you know. We anticipate communicating outcomes of the outline assessment panel in early January next year. And if you're successful, that's a point at which you'll be invited to prepare your full proposal. If you're successful, you will be given 10 weeks from point of invite of your full proposal to submission. And so the submission date for full proposals will be sometime in March 26. Full proposals will go out to expert review, and you'll be provided with the reviews, and a applicant response will be allowable. So you'll have an opportunity to respond to those expert reviews. And then applicants will go to interview panel around July next year, and we expect to communicate outcomes of the entire process around August next year. We do reserve the right to modify the assessment process, and if we do, that will be in response to a higher demand than expected, and we will communicate any modifications clearly with all applicants whenever they occur. So I'll go through the assessment criteria for the outline stage now. And there are 4 assessment criteria at outline stage. The first one is vision. This is what are you hoping to achieve with your proposed work, and we're looking for how you meet the strategic aims of the funding opportunity, including your application being of excellent quality and having the potential to advance current understanding or generate new knowledge within a field or area. that it is timely given current trends, contexts and needs, and impacts world-leading research, and how it aligns to one or more of the challenge areas that we've outlined, and then also to detail how the research vision complements and just does not duplicate existing significant investments in the UK research landscape. So those pieces of information are specific to this funding opportunity, those last 2 points, and they all need to be included in your vision. The second assessment criteria is approach. That's how you're going to deliver your proposed work. And at outline, we're looking for whether it's effective and appropriate to achieve your hub objectives and how it demonstrates appropriate mechanisms to create critical mass of research capacity and act as a leader on behalf of the wider research landscape. The third assessment criteria is applicant and team capability to deliver. So we're looking for application team and how you will deliver the proposed research programme. And this is looking for relevant research experience and skills to develop and deliver the proposed research programme, as well as plans that you have to identify and embed additional expertise where gaps currently exist in the team. And the final assessment criteria outline stage is public and patient involvement and engagement. That's your PPIE plan. And we're looking for how you will embed PPIE throughout all hub activities. And we're asking for a clear PPIE plan for engaging with stakeholders, users of the research and other successful hubs, and details of how you are prioritising co-creation and co-delivery with a range of partners, and how you have considered what PPIE activities will be conducted throughout the hub lifespan and why they are the most appropriate for the programme of research that you're doing through your hub. A note on costs. So at outline, you'll be asked to submit costs for your proposed work, and these are approximate total values under the headings that we have for costs, and you can view guidance on costs that you can apply for on our website, and there are links to those through this funding opportunity document on our funding finder page. Costs at the full proposal stage, if you're successful at outline, are expected to be within 10% of the costs that you request at the outline stage. So this is a slide with some help and resources and links, and these slides will be uploaded onto the funding opportunity page for this funding opportunity after the webinar, so that you can go through and find the links. That are also freely available on our website. If you want to search for any of them, you're very welcome to. And I'm going to hand over now to our first two guest speakers, Steve Ranard and Karen Rafferty at the University of Liverpool, who are involved in the Halo Hub and are going to talk to you about managing a hub.
Thanks, Laura. Can we have the first slide?
Can indeed.
Thank you. Okay, so as Laura said, we were successful last year in receiving funding for a hub, and our hub is Halo, the UK hub for advanced long-acting therapeutics. And I'm going to speak a little bit about how we created the proposal and what's happened since. And we've got a couple of slides from Karen Rafferty, who is our hub manager, just to explain the role of the hub manager and how important that is. Have the next slide, please, Laura. Thank you. So Halo is focused very much on long-acting therapeutics. Obviously, that's in the name. But if you see the top right-hand corner there, essentially what we're trying to do is take months potentially of pill taking and replace it with a single administration of medicine, which will then replace all of those pills. So potentially a single administration that can last for several weeks, several months, and potentially change the entire landscape of therapy delivery. Within the proposal, we had a number of relatively simple themes, but ones which obviously took quite a lot of explanation. So the first one was there's a clear physical sciences knowledge gap. So it's EPSRC funding. The physical science is key to the proposal, although it's healthcare focused. And long-acting therapeutics have a complete lack of understanding of how the physical science impacts that particular route of administration and the potential medical opportunities. So there's a huge physical sciences gap that we propose to try and fill. There's a considerable UK healthcare opportunity in there as well, so potentially generating new medicines for a range of different healthcare needs. Industry is moving this way quite considerably. We've had significant conversations with a whole bunch of different companies which said that this is critical to them. And of course, as Laura's just been explaining, groundbreaking PPIE. So although there are some long-acting therapeutics out there and some interaction has been held in other countries, no one's actually asked the UK population what their view of long-acting therapies would be. So we aim to do that too, a proper national engagement on the PPIE basis. Halo is built on a existing capability. So within Liverpool, we have the Centre of Excellence for Long-Acting Therapeutics. It was actually funded by global charity funding. But again, that's focused on low and middle income countries. We have nothing which is fully focused on the UK until Halo was funded. We'd also done quite a lot of PPI in the past in other countries, and what we realised from that was that you can't do the PPIE thing on the shoestring. It needs proper planning, proper resources, and proper budgets. So we have built into the hub a significant budget and full-time resource for the entire 6 years of the programme. And as I said above, we are trying to target fundamental science, but also the translation of that fundamental science through to new medicine opportunities. Next slide, please, Laura. So during the actual creation of the proposal, the first thing that I identified was 3 other academic partners, which over the years I've spoken to about these sorts of things, and they were fully aligned with the opportunity, always fully aligned with the science, fully aligned with the concept of what we were trying to do. So there was no need to cajole other people to be part of the hub. And there was already a joint understanding of the direction. I then built a clear slide deck, and what I did with that slide deck was I went out to non-academic partners, did a lot of traveling, went across the UK, did a lot of Teams meetings as well, but went talking to UK companies, small companies, big companies, some of the institutions which are there to support translation, such as the CPI. And in those meetings, every time I had a meeting, I modified the slides slightly so that we could then use the benefit of those face-to-face meetings and the input in the next discussions with the next potential partners. What that did over about 3 months was generate a consistent support, and that led to the outline with all of the information within the outline, which was clearly validated by those interactions. We had that led to the outline, but after the outline, immediately after the outline, I continued having those meetings for probably another 4 growth of the hub. So luckily we found someone. That's Karen Rafferty, and Karen's going to take you through the next couple of slides, her observations of starting Halo. Over to you, Karen.
Thanks, Steve. So I just wanted to go through some things to consider about managing a hub, which might be useful when you're thinking about an application and things to build into that. And as mentioned several times, it's the core operations team, I think, are absolutely crucial. And by that, I mean the professional services staff, not the research staff. They're going to be people behind the scenes pulling all of these activities together. And I wouldn't underestimate the support that they're going to provide you as a director if awarded. So I think you need to talk to other hubs, other centres, and figure out what the skill set is that you need and grade it appropriately to get the right people and make sure that that's built into the costings early on. And they're likely to be PMSA staff and not research staff. So there is a difference, and it's important to understand that, I think, and get the right people. And if they're new to the area, the people, they're going to need to get to know the hub team when they start. So those relationships take a bit of time to build. And then what we've done is got a lot of the documentation to build the foundations of the hub in place really early on. And it's all the really boring stuff that nobody wants to do, but it it lays out the processes and the ways of working, how you're going to track things, and it manages expectations. And I think if you get those in place early on and you get it right, then everything is much easier from then on. And then it's making sure you've got a way to record all of the hub activities. You need to develop the relevant strategies, and PPIE has been mentioned quite a lot, and that's a really key aspect of every hub, particularly for us as well. And I think that needs to be led by somebody who knows what good PPIE looks like, and they need to be co-developed, and all that takes time. So when you're building your application in, make sure that that is built into the timeline. And I think giving that the time will allow it to make the strategy of value to the communities that you're trying to affect. And then knowing what the reporting requirements are and the timelines, and working backwards so that if you collect everything as you go, it's much easier at the reporting stage. Next slide, please, Laura. And then another person within the core operations team is a finance officer. The hubs come with a big award over several years, and they need to be managed from the beginning to make sure that the right money is being spent on the right activities. So I think having a financial officer is really important. At pre-award, you would need to get to know your research support officer at the application stage, and then you would move over to post-award. So it's building those relationships within your research support office and also your local institute finance teams. They're really important as well. KPIs need to be generated for the hubs, and they're really important to know what success looks like. And I think if you think about those at the application stage, then it's much easier if the award stage, and build the milestones around that in a way that you know the strategies are going to take time, recruitment's going to take time. Build those in, particularly to the first year. Don't underestimate how many meetings you might need to put in your calendar, and plan ahead for those, particularly the regular ones with leadership teams and external advisory boards and operations meetings and things. Communications, both internal and external, is really, really important. It's not a one size fits all, and we're still learning as we go, but making sure there's a shared space for people to share those key documents and communicate. And we've also tried to brand our hub so that there's a cohesive feel to Halo, regardless of which academic partner is presenting or talking to people with. So we have core slide decks and poster templates and things like that. And we're still developing those things as we go. And then, as I just mentioned, recruitment will take time. And it's better to get the right people in place rather than just get people in place. So I would say, whatever the start date of the hub is going to be, assume you probably wouldn't have a full complement of core staff for at least 3 to 6 months. And make sure, again, that you're aware of this and build this into the application and your plans and your milestones. Next slide. It's back to Steve.
Thanks, Karen. So how are we doing now? Well, one of the things that we did straight away was, or very early on when the time would allow it, was to get all of the PIs together and spend a bit of time together, just looking at the scope of what we want to do, how we want to pull that together. Obviously, we were aligned on the themes, but we needed to be aligned now on the operations and how to deliver the hub. What you can see there is we went over to Queen's, spent some time kicking the tires on the entire program, and for a little bit of downtime, we went walking in the Mourne Mountains just to build that team. We've been already looking for new academics to join in with the program that we have, both within our institutions, but trying to spread widely. It's a national hub, and we want as many people from around the UK involved as possible. We've finally completed all the recruitment. If we were holding this this webinar a month ago, I couldn't write that, but we have now. Physical Sciences program is all up and running. That meeting schedule that Karen talked about is in place, but we're still modifying that as we go. But really importantly, we're a national hub, as you will be as well. And we've we're seeking support and input and discussions with local government and central government as well. Hopefully, we've got that translational pathway that we're focused on. So we have a big forum planned for November between industries in this space and CDMOs, and our PPI strategy is being pulled together. One thing I would say, and Karen mentioned that this is a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But if you're truly looking for something with a strategy which can modify healthcare across the UK, it probably isn't enough, right? So that point that Laura mentioned about sustainability and the future of the hub, we're already planning, and we're only in year one, but we're already planning for the additional funding and how we extend the range of the hub, already building on what we're already doing. So I'll leave it there because I'm sure we've taken too much time already, but hopefully that was useful.
Thank you both very much. That was great. I'm going to hand over now to our final speaker, who is Lauren Walker. Lauren's involved at the hub that's led out of University of Bristol. She's the clinical and PPI lead, and she's going to give a little bit of her insights into patient and public involvement and engagement. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, my name's Lauren. I'm a trial manager and also the PPI lead for the Vivo Hub, which is funded by the EPSRC. So our hub aims to develop smart clothing for older adults and people living with physical disabilities to help them keep their independence and stay at home. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what PPI is, how to do it well, and some considerations that are important when planning and costing PPI for your project. Thanks. Next slide, please. So just to start with, to make sure we're all on the same page, just a definition to go over of patient and public involvement and engagement. It can be split into two definitions, so the involvement and the engagement. So involvement is about the research being carried out with or by members of the public, rather than the research being carried out about them or for them. Whereas patient and public engagement is more an activity where information and knowledge about the research is provided and disseminated to patients and the public. So for the purpose of this presentation, I'll be focusing on PPI, so the patient and public involvement aspect of this. Next slide, please. So a bit about why PPI matters. I'm sure everyone will agree that PPI is so important for getting research right. Over the years, there's been a real positive shift in terms of thoughts towards PPI, where it's no longer seen as this tick box exercise to just get research over the line, where it's kind of done at the last minute. I think now it's starting, and rightly so, to be recognised as something that's really meaningful and useful to ensure that the research is impactful. So it's important at all stages. It needs to be embedded right from the start. So your public contributors can help in identifying unmet needs, helping to find solutions to them, all the way through to refining the actual research process, how you might test, and also dissemination and rollout. So when it comes to working with public contributors and who they might be, I'll talk about a little bit later. It's important because it ensures that the research that you're doing is relevant, meaningful, and has the potential to make a real difference to people's lives, because there's not really much point as researchers with us going off and doing something that we think is a really great idea and it's going to make all of this amazing difference, but actually the public don't think it's useful, or maybe they don't think it's usable and can be incorporated into their everyday life. So doing good PPIE right from the beginning, and even at the application stage if possible, which I know is sometimes a little bit difficult in terms of funding, but if you can, I think it's a really good idea. Because if you do PPI well, you're going to make sure that the money and the time that you have is well spent, and that it's actually going to benefit the people that it's intended to help. Next slide, please. So some things to think about. As I've already said, it needs to happen right from the beginning. During the application process, if you can. This is when things are most easily changed. The earlier in the project you get input, the better, because if you wait too late and you start trying to implement PPIE much later down the track, sometimes it's too costly to make changes that the contributors might suggest, or maybe it's just not even possible once you've gone too far down one track to try and backtrack and change things. So if you can get people involved right from the beginning, it prevents that from happening, and it means that everything is co-designed all the way through rather than just getting a little bit of feedback at the end. I think communication is probably one of the most important things. You need to express, not impress, to your public contributors. So that means talking in lay terms. I'm sure everybody probably knows this, but just to emphasize, you need to create that friendly environment where your public contributors feel that they can speak up, share their true opinions. And one way that we do this is by removing titles. Everybody's on a first name basis in our PPI meetings. There's no professors, doctors. Everybody is just going by their first name. It removes the hierarchy. Everybody's the same. Everybody's contributing the same in those meetings. I think it helps to make everybody feel more comfortable. Another thing to consider for good PPI is about feedback. So at the end of our PPI sessions, we ask our contributors to fill in a short feedback form, and I would emphasize that it is short. It just helps you to improve your PPI as you progress through the project, find out what they have enjoyed, maybe what they didn't enjoy, talk about the venue perhaps. And equally, feedback from yourself is important. So we keep an impact log, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, because there's quite a good resource that can help with keeping an impact log. So through this, you can document the purpose of the meeting, what was discussed, and the overall impact that that meeting has had on the research and the project as it progresses. And this is really useful when it comes to reporting down the line as well, if you have that to hand, rather than thinking back to what might have been discussed in a meeting 6 months ago. On the same line with communication, it's really important to keep contributors in the loop. They've given up their time to come along and to help with the project. They become very invested. So it's really important to keep that communication loop going with them, even outside of the meetings. Show them how they're helping, show them how their impact, how they've impacted the research, what feedback you've taken on board, and any changes that you might have made. And then at the end, when the hub is finished, it's important to let the contributors know the overall outcome of it, what has been the impact of the entire project in itself. We want public contributors to have a really positive experience of research. This can be something as simple as a newsletter, maybe every 6 months or so as the project goes through. It's important to start thinking about these things now so that they can be embedded into your plan, because these are the sort of things that maybe might not be considered as such a priority once the hub gets up and going and there's so many things going on. So if you can plan these from the start, it means they won't be missed, because it is really important for the people that are helping. And then finally, on the same lines of good communication for good PPI, is about expectations. So this is both what you can expect of your public contributors and also what they can expect from you. So to do this, we created a handbook that we gave out to everyone right at the beginning of the first PPI session that we had. And that included the expectations, also included information about how the sessions will run and frequently asked questions. And they had this handbook that they could bring with them to each session. It even had like a notes page at the end where they could use it to sort of keep their information and things that they might have learned as time progressed. To give you some examples of what they might be, expectations that we listed that we had of our contributors would be to treat every contributor with respect and be open to diverse opinions that they may or may not agree with, and also to keep confidentiality when needed, both in terms of other people when they're sharing their lived experiences, and also confidentiality in terms of the research that might be being discussed. And then some expectations they could have of us would be that we would reimburse them for their time and also their travel. Thanks. Next slide, please. So next, something that's important, I think, when planning PPI is to put yourself in their shoes. in the shoes of your public contributors. So you need to think ahead of time about who they might be and what their barriers might be for taking part. So, for example, for us with the Vivo Hub, we have a PPI group formed of older adults and people with physical disabilities. When it comes to older adults, when we were advertising for the PPI group, putting an advert, say on Instagram, for example, they're probably not going to see that with the demographic, whereas maybe a flyer in a doctor's office, you're more likely to catch those people. Also, not everybody has access to internet. We just often assume this, but it's not always the case. So, for example, having a telephone number and an email for people to contact you if they'd like to join the PPI group is important. And then you need to make sure that you're costing in time and personnel of who's going to be answering that phone. And then once you've recruited your PPI group, you need to think about barriers for them, those people, to even take part. So, for example, if people with physical disabilities, in our case, we needed to think about accessibility of venues. We needed to think about helping people with transport organisation for them to be able to attend. So it's all about just thinking about not just how you're going to run the PPI session, but how these people are going to take part in it as well. In terms of ensuring that you have diversity and a representative voice, you might need to reach out directly to some community groups, be prepared to travel to them. And if English isn't their first language, you also need to think about whether an interpreter is required, and you also are going to need to cost this as well, which I know can be a little bit tricky when you're not sure who it might be. But if you can sort of think about that in advance, these groups often already exist and are engaged by other research groups. So to talk to other people and what they're doing, and it can help to form this plan about who you're going to try and reach out to and what you need to think about in terms of how are they going to take part and what barriers they might have. And then finally, we need to be mindful of discussing sensitive topics, especially when you're talking about people's health. It can be triggering, you know, reminding them of maybe a health problem that they have. I think we all just need, you know, to remember everybody's human. So, for example, a recent PPI group that I worked with was with a group of people with Parkinson's, and it's really important not to scare them because, you know, Parkinson's is a progressive illness, and just not to be dismissive of their condition. Just sort of little things like that, I think, is important when you're looking at who's going to run these sessions and whether that's the right person to run it. So all these things together will help you to make a really effective PPI plan for your application that everybody can join in with who wants to, and that everybody's going to enjoy as well. And I think if you think about these things right at the beginning, it's helpful. And maybe it's going to cost a little bit more, but like we've already discussed, you can't do this on a shoestring budget, and it's worth the extra money to make sure that this is a success. Thanks. Next slide, please. So in terms of budgeting for PPI, I think if you start with asking yourself all of these questions I'm going to go through, it forms a nice skeleton that you can then start putting in numbers to help you budget. So starting with the first question would be when. So when do you need input throughout the hub? Which work packages? Maybe it's all of them, maybe it's just some of them, and how often. So that's going to help with knowing the number of sessions that you'll be needed through the lifespan of the project. Next is why. So that kind of goes together with the when. So just to clarify, why are you meeting them this many times during that particular work package? What's the objective? It makes sure that the time is used well and you're not having sessions sort of for the sake of a session, and it's really clear what they might be able to give input on and what can be changed at that point in the project. Next is who, which has two questions to it. The first one is who's going to form the group. So it should be a mix really. So we've got patients, caregivers, healthcare professionals, just general members of the public. Think about how you're going to find them and also how many, because that will help you with costing reimbursements. Like I said before, sometimes these groups already exist. So if you can sort of find out who other people are engaging with, then often these groups are very engaged and eager to get involved in multiple projects, but do be mindful of also overburdening. There's like a balance here, I think, that just needs to be considered. On the same line with who, it will be who's going to lead the PPI work. That can be somebody internal or external to the hub. It could even be internal, could be joint positions. So, for example, a research coordinator is also doing the PPI work. Think about this, and then you can budget accordingly for that person who will be running it, and all the administration work and everything that needs to go on in the background. Next is where. So whether this is in person or online, it's very easy to jump straight to online because it's easier, I would say, and cheaper, but you do need to think of the audience, like I've said before, what's best for them, really. So if you're going to go in person, community halls are quite a good place to start. They're less intimidating. Often you can have them in a community hall that is where those people are living for patients, so it's less travel for them, less burdensome for them, and also community halls can be quite cost effective as well. And then finally is how, which hopefully you can answer from all the questions so far, which is how is the funding going to cover all of this, and how are you going to slot that into the overall budget? So I think if you start answering all of these questions, it makes for a nice skeleton and a starting point for your PPI plan, and then to be able to budget for that properly. And you're thinking about how many people you've got to reimburse, how many sessions, so how many venue bookings do you need, and extras as well, like interpreters or any accessibility needs that might incur additional costs. Next slide, please. Finally, some resources that I think are useful. I've kept this quite short, but there are so many resources online. Just Google PPIE, so many things pop up. But two sort of the most useful, I think, at this point would be the payment for public contributors. So this is from the UKRI, and it outlines how much to pay depending on the length of the meeting, if there's any pre-reading or pre-work that you need to do. So this is important because it's making sure you're paying the people fairly for their contribution, and also it's going to help you with your budgeting once you know sort of how many meetings and how many people might be involved. And then the second thing is a PPIE planning and tracking tool, or PIRIT. So this is a downloadable tool that can help with planning and budgeting. It was co-developed by public contributors and staff at the Mary Curie Research Centre and the Wales Cancer Research Centre, but they had a lot of interest from it, and then from that they've made it freely available, and you can download it from that website. It's been really useful, especially the impact log that I was talking about before. There's a skeleton there that can be helpful for that, for documenting things, especially when it's such a project that's going over such a long time. It's quite good to look back on and see how changes have been made and what you've spoken about in PPI meetings across the breadth of the project. So that's everything from me. So good luck to everyone with their applications and research, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That's really fantastic. So we'll move on to the Q&A session and try and answer some of the questions. If we don't get to answer your questions live in the webinar, we will type responses to all of the questions and produce an FAQ document, as I said, which will be uploaded onto the Funding Opportunity webpage as well. Catherine and Andrew, do we have any questions to answer?
Yeah, just thank you very much for your questions. Catherine and I have tried to answer as many as we can, but the ones which we haven't managed to get around to. The first one is, Laura, the website states that Hub Director should have a proven track record of managing large investments. Can you define what you mean by large investments? Would these be equivalent or similar sized hubs or centres?
It could be. It doesn't necessarily have to be of exactly the same scale in terms of value. I think it's around demonstrating expertise and experience in the type of management activities you'll be doing across a large multidisciplinary project, working with different kinds of partners, managing lots of different work packages and activities. And yes, it doesn't have to be of a similar scale in terms of value, but just demonstrating expertise in management of the type of activities we're asking for a Hub Director to do.
All right, thank you. We have another one asking, can a national hub have a place focus to develop research or best practice that can be potentially applied to other areas of the UK?
Yeah, so we're quite non-descriptive in terms of how you want to set up your partnerships and academic and institutional partnerships for your hub. So they might be quite spread out across the UK, or they might be focused on a particular geographic place. I think it's around justifying the choices that you've made in terms of your partnerships. Why are you choosing those partners? Is it because of a particular reason, for example, building a capability in a certain place and working with those partners, or it might be a different. So I think we're quite open to that. It will be around justifying your approach, justifying why the partnerships you've chosen. And then if you are quite place-centered in one area, thinking then about how you will fulfill that role of a national hub. So you might be working with UK partners from different areas further down the line in your hub. You might bring additional partners on during the lifespan of the hub, or be doing different types of activities to work as, say, a UK leader. So I think we're quite agnostic on how you set your hub up. It's all around justifying how you meet those objectives of the hub, which do include working as a UK leader in the field you've chosen.
Okay, thank you, Laura. And we've had this question a few times, and I think you've just in part covered it. Can you elaborate as to whether there are any expectations in terms of collaborations across institutions, for example, number or location? Are there any limitations on this? And who can lead and who can partner?
Yeah, so in terms of who can lead and who can partner, our standard eligibility criteria apply for who can lead. So do have a look at that. It's linked in the funding opportunity website. So check eligibility. The same will apply for the partners. So you can have co-investigators from organisations that are eligible to be directly receiving funds from EPSRC. If you're not, if one of your partners does not meet that eligibility criteria, they can be a project partner or subcontractor, various different ways that you can set that up. The other part of the question was around number of collaborators, was it? So again, this is something that we've been quite non-prescriptive on, so that you can form your hub format and model around one that you think best meets the aims and objectives of your hub. That might look quite different for different hubs and different areas that you're working in. So we're quite agnostic on that. I think the important bit will be around that justification in your outline in terms of how you meet those assessment criteria on the vision and approach that we went through in terms of building critical research capacity, acting as UK leaders. That might be through direct partnerships in terms of multi-institutions that form part of the core part of the hub, or it might be through different types of partnerships or activities. So we don't have requirements in terms of the lower or upper number of partnerships. It will be around putting forward the strongest model that you feel best meets the aims and objectives of this funding opportunity and the specific project aims and objectives of your hub.
Okay, thank you. We have another one. I think this is quite specific. So can a health medical sciences be the hub lead with key stakeholders from other institutes and physical sciences? Is that clear?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you want me to take one, Laura?
Yeah, go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, so yeah, that's absolutely fine. So if you're from a health or medical background, you obviously can lead the hub. I guess you just need to make sure you're demonstrating under the applicant and team capability to deliver criteria about I guess how you're able to how you have the relevant research experience and skills to deliver this hub. So it's just yeah, making sure that you've sort of clarified that within the within your application, but it doesn't matter what background you're from.
Okay, thank you. And we have one which is highly voted. So many of the currently funded hubs focus on a technology with a range of health or healthcare applications. Is it in scope for a hub to focus on a clinical challenge with a range of technologies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Catherine, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Laura. Yeah, no, I was just going to agree with you. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. You can look at one clinical challenge of different technologies associated. Again, it's just about explaining why you've chosen that approach and what your vision is. But yeah, that's absolutely fine. And I guess the only other thing to mention is about articulating the engineering physical sciences research challenges as part of your application as well.
The other thing I'd just add to that would be to make sure that you're communicating quite clearly, particularly at the outline stage where it forms part of the assessment criteria, is why and how that hub will act as a hub and not a series of research programs that could be broken down into sort of a series of smaller research applications, so that it's brought together under an umbrella of a hub, and then it's cohesive and they're working together across those different areas. So it's just making sure you're putting across that hub nature of your application quite strongly at outline stage.
Okay, thank you. We have a question around involving UK and non-UK companies. Could you potentially give an example as to how a hub could involve any of these? Because the person who's posed the questions rightly says that they assume they can't be funded.
Yeah, so they can act as project partners, and they can be project partners can be from UK or international based organisations and companies, and yeah, they can't receive funds directly, but they can obviously work with the hub and form part of the hub that way. And also you can ask for resources for visiting and hosting researchers from overseas locations as well. So that's one way you can cost in international collaboration into your hub.
Okay, thank you. And I think we've got two questions which are similar. So would you expect matched funding from the universities involved? And is there an expectation for the lead institution to demonstrate significant project investment over and above what is available via the call?
So we're not asking for match funding from the research organisations. We will at full proposal stage ask for a support document or letter from your research organisations just detailing how they will be supporting the hub and contributing to it, but not in terms of matched funding, and details of that will be put out at the full proposal stage. No information is required at the outline stage on that.
Okay, I believe we've answered most of the questions. There was one, I think, specifically directed at Steve, and I'm just trying to find it. If we have time for that. I think it was about how you went about setting up a national PPIE campaign. How is this done?
Yeah, we're in the process of working out how we want to do that in the UK. We have done similar activities though in low and middle income countries, and we've done that country by country. So, for example, we had an activity in Egypt and one in India very recently, and in that particular case, we went really quite high and went to providers as well as patients and the public. So we went to, in essence, healthcare provision, the likes of NHS in India. And we did that previously by a series of questionnaires, but as was just discussed in terms of PPIE, what we want to do in the UK is literally get into the local village halls and whatever it takes in order to get as wide an input as possible. What is important though, and it's probably worth just emphasising that from a perspective of PPIE, if you do have multiple universities involved in your hub, and we have 4, they all have PPIE activities and they are all connected into the wider PPIE networks. So we're hoping to pull across or pull upon all of that as we start to develop a strategy for how to do this across the UK.
All right, thank you, Steve. 2 other questions have come in, which may be the last 2. Sorry, my program's not loading. Will it jeopardize applications if 2 lead applications come from one organisation?
So is that two different applications from one lead RO? No, I think is the simple answer to that. So they will be assessed on individual merit.
Okay, and are there specific definitions for a digital hub? For example, does it have to be open access?
Catherine, do you have anything to say on that?
I'm not quite sure I 100% understand sorry, what's meant by a digital hub. I guess we do have sort of open access criteria around and a policy around open data access at UKRI, which I can share. But perhaps if that's okay, if that person can reach out to the healthcare inbox with a bit more detail on what they mean by a digital hub, that'd be really useful, and then we can provide some more specific advice around that. But I'll try and find the link to the open data policy and post that in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. And one final question is asking about the supporting of learning as opposed to research in a research hub. I think they've referenced one of the previously funded hubs, LEAP, which seemed to have a unique skills and knowledge and programme. Could you potentially talk about that, Laura?
I'm not familiar with that particular hub. It wasn't funded through the last round of this
It's the
hub
round
call.
Yep, sorry.
So it might be through a different theme at EPSRC. So if that individual would like to get in touch with the question and a little bit more detail around that particular model, I'd be very happy to provide any advice and guidance on whether it would fit the remit of this funding opportunity.
Okay,
and
thank you
guess,
very much.
Just to mention as well, I guess any sort of secondments or learning and training is very much encouraged as part of a hub. So there are definitely things that you can do around that and include costs around that kind of thing for staff at the hub as well. But yeah, as Laura said, get in touch if there's more specific information that you'd like around that.
Okay, and I think that's all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And we will include the write-up of all the questions we've answered and not had a chance to answer, as I said, in due course on the website. So thanks to the speakers again for your time and your great presentations, and thanks to everyone for attending.